Enjoy this video in which my wonderful assistant Stephanie throws one question after another at me about meditation and our spiritual practice and how we can get rid of the things that might be blocking us from opening up to the spirit world and a greater sense of connection with all that is. Some really great advice here that I brought through straight from my spirit guides to you. So enjoy. Hi, everybody. We've been doing a series of podcasts where my staff questions me about topics that you all have shown an interest in. And this week's topic is meditation as it pertains to spiritual connection. So if you have any questions about that, hopefully they'll be included in the ones that we've already gleaned from what people have submitted. I'd like to bring in my wonderful staff assistant, Stephanie Pfennig. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
I'm ready to take these on with my team and Spirit Sanaya helping to answer these questions. So why don't we just take it away?
All right, let's dive in. And this is such a cool topic because, I'm on the path and I'm doing my meditation and connecting and all that good stuff. So, let's go right out of the gate with an interesting one about reincarnation. How can I connect with my loved one on the other side in meditation if they have reincarnated?
Well, you can do that because the entirety of who we are does not reincarnate. We are souls which are so much bigger than one story, one lifetime. So what you're connecting with is the soul of your loved one, who knows exactly what you need and how to connect you with that aspect of them that is your loved one, even while that soul is having another experience in another lifetime. So don't worry about that at all. And the process would be the same as anytime we connect through meditation. We would want to start with either the sip of the divine or my 7 steps to connecting with higher consciousness, the Bless Me method, both of which are available on YouTube and in my book, The Awakened Way. So I don't think
Awesome.
we're here to go into how those processes work, but they're very simple and they're out there for everybody to learn from.
That is awesome. And I know, I really do feel like that'll resonate with a lot of people because you can get this fear, this terrible fear that, oh my gosh, they've moved on without me. But they haven't. Their soul has not.
Right.
That's
right.
so cool. Okay. How do we know a sign is from a loved one and it's not just something that reminds us of them because we miss them?
Oh, well, either case is wonderful, but we all want to know this is real. I'm really connecting with them. And it's that word know versus the word think. We have a knowing within us. It's them. And you come to know this in meditation when you sit quietly and you set your story aside and you set all distractions aside. You sit and you talk to your loved one and let me put it this way. When that feeling of connection arises, there's no doubting it. Steph, I had a man wrote to me once, emailed me. He said, I'm 86 years old and I sat here doing your meditation and I sobbed like a baby when I felt my loved one step in. He said, there was no doubt in my mind that it was them. And it's that emotional component. And you can't make that happen. It just arises and you just know. Because many times when we interact with our own loved ones, for example, when my mother came to me after she passed, she didn't say anything that I didn't already know. And she said what I would expect her to say. Oh, Susie, I love you, or I'm fine. So there is a tendency for us to think we're making it up, when in fact, what we want is that feeling of connection. And we can have that whether or not we're meditating, but when we go into a nice, relaxed, expanded state, we can enjoy it longer and more deeply.
Oh, that's so cool.
Well, how about you? You know, you say you're relatively new on this path, but you have your daughter Katie across the veil and your stepson Nick. Have you had that visceral experience of their presence?
I have. It feels, just to be frank with everyone about where I am, Sometimes I feel I'm forcing it. And if I feel that way, you know how you said there's a feeling, I back off. I back off from that. I invite anyone else in and I say, I love you, Kate, and we'll talk again when it's the perfect time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That reminds me of a teaching that I shared recently in my monthly connection webinars about feeling the difference between wanting that connection and knowing that it's unfolding perfectly. Even as I say wanting, I lean in and I clench up. My hands go into fists, my gut clenches up. And that's what I feel so often in so many of my students and those of you who watch the videos and listen to the podcast. You just want that connection so badly, but that's that is the exact opposite of the energy that we want to project when we connect. So it's a matter of learning to relax and trust the process and see how I just sit back and I'm more open and receptive and just waiting, not knowing when it's going to happen, but knowing that in being receptive and open, I'm much more likely to make that connection than if I desperately need it.
Yeah, that's so perfect, Suzanne, because over time, that's how I've come to be okay if it doesn't feel right in that moment. That's okay. We're going to do this every day. So some days we'll connect and some days it won't feel quite right. And that's okay. But we'll get there. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Why are there spans of time when we don't hear from a loved one on the other side? Do spirits have a limited amount of energy to expend at any given time?
Spirits do not have a limited amount of energy, but they may have their own path to follow, just as we do. It took years till my stepdaughter Susan came to me because she wanted me to learn other things in the meantime. And boy, did I. I learned how to focus more. I connected with guides and angels and other people's loved ones. My primary goal was I want to hear from Susan and only Susan, but Spirit with a capital S had a bigger plan in mind. And that's the thing, Stephanie. We don't know what the bigger picture is when we're stuck in these bodies that filter out the bigger picture. So we remain committed to the path, and we sometimes sense them and other times we don't. There are so many answers to that question, Stephanie, as to why it might not work. We might be super distracted one day and very peaceful the next. We might be off balance one day and perfectly aligned the next. We're like waves in the ocean, right? Sometimes we're high, sometimes we're low, sometimes we're nice and calm. Our energy is constantly changing, as is those of our loved ones across the veil. So we just wait for that moment of perfect alignment, perfect resonance, and not only energetically, but big picture wise, is this the best time in our path for making that connection?
Wow, that's super cool. And it helps remind me, Suzanne, that to not get in some negative spiral just because it doesn't happen.
Oh,
And just know that everything's coming in time. So
that's right. And I talked to so many people, and some have breakthroughs after a short period of time, meaning they made a connection with their loved one. Some take a lot longer. It's the typical case of, well, if you stop now because you haven't had success, how do you know that it wouldn't have happened the next day? And we don't. And that's why we just remain committed, but know that we are learning, we are growing, we are raising our consciousness just by doing the practice of meditation or sitting quietly and focusing on that singular goal of connecting with higher consciousness. Learn a lot along the way.
awesome. And isn't that so hopeful? I just love it. Okay. All right. This is interesting and it's cute at the end. Could you speak more about the heart center and what it really means to drop in the heart space when trying to connect? I only feel the physicality of my chest and ribs.
Okay. Yeah. The heart space is, we put it that way because we're talking to the energetic center of who you are. I remember when I connected with one of my guides, William James, across the veil, And I said, I know I'm talking to you. I can tell you're here. I can feel you. Put something in my hand, which is a wonderful practice for having spirit give you some image of something that will help you understand their teaching more. The very first thing that arises in awareness, go with that before the mind starts thinking. So when I said to William James, put something in my hand, I started laughing because the image that appeared in my mind's eye, you don't have to look at your hand, was a roll of toilet paper. So at first you say, what is that? And then you ask the spirit, why did you do that? And he put the awareness in my mind. All of us are like this roll of toilet paper. The body is the form for now, but we all have this central core that the toilet paper roll couldn't exist without that, what appears to be an empty space in the middle. And yet that is where all the wisdom arises, from that spacious area that appears separate from the actual body. So the heart center of all of us is the core of us energetically. We're not talking about the form. We're talking about the part that, just like the one core in one roll of toilet paper, is connected through that apparently empty space to all the other rolls in existence through the core. And the heart is that place of connection. And it's the same in everyone. Doesn't matter if your body is big or small, or if your physical heart is strong or weak. We're talking about the energetic part of you that's connected to everyone. So we learn to shift our awareness to focusing there, being there, and coming from there. What I mean by that is, if everybody were to close their eyes right now, and I'd ask you, where is your awareness? It's most likely behind your eyes, because we're so used to all of our visual input coming in here. Tasting input comes at the mouth. Hearing comes in at ears. We get distracted by physical sensations with touch, but it tends to make us think that consciousness is right here at this nexus of all these inputs. But you can move your consciousness anywhere. I have my little dog Nellie across the room. I can move my consciousness, my awareness, into Nellie's body and suddenly be aware of what it's like to be Nellie. Consciousness is not stuck in the head. Consciousness is, but it tends to be focused in our body, because that's why we're here, to have this bodily experience. So with awareness and intention, you just drop awareness here and you imagine being in this heart space, not in your physical heart, but in the core of you, and visualize how this core of you is connected to the core of all beings everywhere and all that is. And then you notice, what do you feel? What images arise? What intention can you set to discern information from this space here where you connected with all that is? That's the answer.
Oh, that's awesome. I was just closing my eyes going through that with you as you did. And of course, I love the toilet paper analogy, that the funnel, right? Oh, we could have fun with that, right, on social media.
I took a roll of not toilet paper, a roll of paper towels.
Paper towels.
And I used a magic marker and I drew a person on it and I set it on my desk for a while. I also had a roll of toilet paper. Same thing. It has that central core that's has to be there to support the role, and just like the core of us. So whatever
that's cool
takes, I have fun with that.
I like that, those physical reminders. That's so cool. All right, here's an interesting one. Do talismans like rosaries or the tree of life symbol help increase our connection to spirit?
They can. They're not necessary. It's so funny because somebody just gave me a rosary as a gift when I taught at the Omega Institute last weekend, and it's beautiful. And I was not raised Catholic, but I know how sacred that is to Catholics. Yet to me, it's just yet another way of focusing our awareness on who we are and how connected we are with all beings. I would use the rosary in a different way, to use the mala bead exercise that I have in the Awakened Way book, of holding the rosary as a focus of attention and touching one bead at a time and bringing to mind someone that I know, even if I've never met them, stating their name and reminding myself that they are a soul, a direct representative of spirit. And then moving on to the next bead and asking spirit to put someone else in my mind. And you go through that with one bead at a time, and you see the feelings that arise as you affirm that each person you're focusing upon is an equal and equally loved aspect of God. It's a hugely helpful practice, especially when a name arises of someone that would normally cause you to clench and feel judgment and separation. When you do this exercise and you notice that, and you hear the words you're saying, they are equally an expression of God, it starts to get you thinking in a different way. So this is how we can use anything as a talisman. The tree of life, it's just a tree. That's until we give it different meaning. To me, I love to use that visual of the tree of life as myself as the tree, and helping to get balanced and grounded by visualizing my roots going deep into the earth and drawing in the earthly feminine energy. And then my branches go all the way up to the cosmos and allow me to draw down the masculine energy. And so with that image in my mind, I can sense where I'm out of balance, more masculine or feminine energy, and I ask spirit to balance me, and I feel the power of the tree. So just about anything you can use is an object of focus and can serve as a beautiful metaphor for helping us along our spiritual path.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I thought also the mala beads as well when they mentioned rosary. So
Great.
very cool. Yes, get you in the right space. Okay. In a practice session, I get so nervous that I won't be able to connect with a spirit that I doubt it's real when they do show up. Is there a key to relaxing this?
And this questioner is probably asking about it in a practice session of doing a reading for someone else. There's a lot of pressure there, because to sit with someone you don't know, or maybe you know them but don't know a lot about their loved ones across the veil, and do your best to connect with that person in spirit and bring through evidence and accurate messages, is a level of pressure for our human side. We are raised in school to do well, to look good, to want to succeed. And innately, we want to succeed to serve those in spirit. So the best thing that I've found is learning to talk to myself before doing a session and during a session. Talk to those aspects of me that are trained to think along the lines I just said. And then to remind myself, why am I doing this? Part of me, the greater part of me, already has this connection across the veil. Let's turn up the volume on that side of me. So when we learn to say to that business manager side of our brain, we don't need to right now. You might fail or you might be successful. We don't know, but it's not helpful if you butt in here. You go sit over there in the corner for a while, and then we just relax. And the key, Stephanie, is trusting that we are surrounded by spirits who have the bigger picture, who want to help us, who want to be heard. Then we've created space now to just sit back and receive what they're sending us. That's the key. And it takes practice. I know I can teach these things because I've been through all of it. I know what it's like to sit and doubt yourself, to doubt spirit, to have those fears arise. And the only way past it that I've found is in the doing. And then the more you relax, you get to feel what it feels like to be totally open and receptive and trusting. It contrasts so greatly with the tension and the ego thoughts that you recognize the difference right away. And then as you do relax, you can't deny the presence of spirit. You start reporting it. Your person you're doing the reading for gets excited. The energy rises. And you start to notice the difference between a very valid connection with great flow and one that's questionable and is being influenced by the ego thoughts.
Good point to separate out those ego thoughts.
Have you had the chance
Okay.
to do a practice session with anybody else? I know you took my personal mediumship plus class where we don't do one-on-ones, but have you ever tried to connect for someone else?
I have once. It's been a couple of years ago. And I would say like my accuracy was probably about 50-50. The old me would have thought, oh, what a failure.
Yeah.
But as I continue to practice and make space, and know that it's coming in the time it should, I give myself much more of a break.
Good, good. Okay, cool.
I'll have to try it again.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. Could you share your insights, Suzanne, on maintaining a consistent spiritual link during any given meditation period?
Yes. The more you sit in the silence, perhaps just 3 minutes a day with my sip of the divine, the video for that is No More Meditation Excuses. The more you can tell when your helpers, your A team, the team above, is directly communicating with you. I don't want to say is here with you because they are always here with us, right, Steph? Always around us, always putting insights in our mind. But when we go into the silence and expand our awareness with the intention of connecting with them, they're kind of like, oh, good. Now we can make our presence more well known. So holding the intention is our task, remaining receptive and just letting all of our non-helpful thoughts flow past is something we practice for. So we simply do it. And then, like I said before, we notice when our mind has wandered. My mind wanders to this day in my meditation, but I don't let it get to me. I just notice, oops, sorry, guys, I'm off track here. Here we come again. And I just kind of click in again. It's like you're on a radio dial and you're right on the cusp of two stations. And because you're coming in and out, you pick up the other station and you start paying attention because it's interesting, but you notice this other one has what you need. So you just shift your focus back. And it's a constant flow. Rather than thinking, oh, I did something wrong, you just acknowledge that this is how our brain works. It distracts us. But when we train ourselves to have that focus with a clear intention that our greater good be served, you will be able to maintain that link longer and longer. But as I showed, there are definitely moments when I get distracted, but they're fewer and farther between, and getting back in the flow is easier the more you do this.
Okay, that's great. I love that radio and dial analogy because we can all, think about that and how you're hearing slightly two things at once.
Yes,
and you finally just fine tune it,
One of the greatest keys for me when I get discouraged and think, how can I bring through thousands and thousands of souls and still wonder, are they really here? That's my human side. I laugh at it and I just remind myself, these are just different channels like on TV that are playing here. And I simply need to shift the channel more often.
Awesome. That's great. And I just heard another one too. A friend of mine was telling me when they read on their Kindle, they can also see text messages that are coming through at the top, that drop down at the top. And you know how you just flick it up and later, I'm reading my book.
Perfect.
So
yeah,
I'm going to try that too. So, okay, good.
I love that because I used the other day the analogy in my class that I talk about people being aware that our loved ones and our guides will catch our attention with using snags. Just something you see in your field of vision catches your attention. That's a snag. You pull the thread by saying, was that somebody in spirit? What's the message for me? Comes with a kind of a feeling in the heart that there's a reason that caught my attention. And the analogy I used was they're like notifications that pop up on your screen. They catch your attention as they jump out at you. Then you can choose to pay attention to them or not. So I love that you got that.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Okay. Okay, here's interesting. I think a lot of people probably have this too. I have been having trouble prioritizing my meditation and connection time. This results in me going many days in a row without trying to connect. What are ways I can motivate myself to have regular daily practice?
Yes, it's a matter of commitment. So sit down and remind yourself why you want to have a daily practice. Do you want to feel that fullness that can't be contained? Do you want to know you are part of something so much greater than yourself? How badly do you want to be able to access peace instantly throughout your day, not just when you're sitting in the silence? How much do you want to enjoy adventures in consciousness where you have no other explanation than that you are connecting with a loved one who has passed? How much do you want to receive insights and guidance from guides who have the answers you're seeking? I mean, if even one of those were to come through for a daily short practice or long practice, it would be worth it. But I guarantee you, all of those and more are the benefits that can be received from a daily practice. The most important overarching one being to remember you are not only human. I went to the Omega Institute and I knew that I would have a very poor signal and I'd be busy all day. And I asked you and Bev to just for those 4 days post older Awakened Way messages on the app. I would say 360 days out of the year, they're fresh messages from Spirit every morning that I get in my daily practice. But when I have a class like that or an early morning flight, I'll ask you guys to run a rerun of a message and ask your guides which one to run. So there's still Spirit involved in it. But my point is, in those 4 days, I didn't have my normal schedule. I didn't connect as regularly. I was connecting with my guides all day long while teaching. It was like one big long meditation, but I didn't have that sacred time when I just sit quietly and connect consciously with them. And I missed it because it's such a part of my life. So to make it a priority, find a time of day and stick to it. And of course, the optimal time is first thing in the morning. Ty and I have a ritual. We get up, we brush our teeth, we take the dogs out together because they have to go out first. And then we come upstairs, we make the bed together. He goes downstairs and I come into this room with the dogs. They know. We say, let's go meditate. And they run into the room and sit under the chair to sit in that beautiful energy. But that is sacred time for me. Nothing else interferes with that. I don't eat first. I don't get reading emails yet because then I get distracted and I forget the most important part of my day, connecting with Spirit to remember we're not only human. So I'm pretty sure, Steph, in this day that most of us will start looking at our phone first thing in the morning, be distracted by the TV or the family things. So carve out a space and time, place where you can sit, and a special time, hopefully first thing before you open any app or do anything, and spend 3 minutes a day, maybe 10, maybe 20 on yourself, which will then show you you are part of a much greater self with a capital S.
Awesome. That's just awesome. Okay, this is an interesting one about group practice, potentially. I have recently thought about asking friends to come over and meditate together and then share what we are hearing from Spirit, like a connection circle, so to speak. Do you have any advice for such a group practice, or is this a good idea?
My advice is do it. When I lived in Florida, I was giving a lot of presentations. I was leading workshops and such. And I was invited to be with a group of women who met every Thursday in a meditation circle. And I was so happy because I was just one of the girls. I didn't have to lead anything. And the person who hosted it in their home, she would start with a little prayer, just something she read out of a book. It was non-denominational. And then we would all sit quietly for, I can't remember how many minutes it was, but the power and the love that was present with us. We didn't do it to connect with Spirit. although that is often an intention that groups can have, and that's pretty cool. They call that development circles. And then after a set period of time, you do share any connections you made. But this group just sat to feel who we really are at the core. Think toilet paper roll.
Mhm.
And then we had a book that was chosen by us as a group, and each week we would read certain number of pages together out loud. One person would read maybe one page, and then they'd go to the next person, and we would stop and we would discuss. Often books by Wayne Dyer, or there was one called I Am That. This was not planned, but The Awakened Way would be an outstanding book to do that with, because then you discuss, what do you think about that? How does that, what issues does that raise for you? And it was just a really special time to focus on our higher selves and not all the drama in our lives. And yet by doing it, we found less drama in our lives.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure everybody can use that. Less drama.
And sometimes only 5 of us would show up, and we capped it at 12. And it's very important to have a group where there are no egos involved, that somebody doesn't have to lead it, that you all feel like equals. No teachers take over. I hope that you listening will be able to find a group like that. The beauty is we can now do that on Zoom. We don't have to meet, but it sure was nice to get those hugs all around every time. But so many groups have started from my webinars and classes over the years that I meet people at my presentations now, and they say, hey, this is my friend. We've been meeting in Zoom and for years as a result of your class, and we met in person for the first time here. And I got goosebumps. It's really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. We can do an Awaken Way book club. I'll start one in my town.
But whatever, just find your peeps. People say, I don't have a spiritual somebody around here thinks like I do. Well, you can find it online. Just on my Facebook page, put a comment. Anybody out there want to join a group? That sort of thing.
Awesome. All right. Here's one about parents, actually. Why would one parent manifest themselves when I am connecting with spirit, but not two together? Would it be because one had died many years earlier? And the second part is, why would a loved one from the other side manifest themselves to us frequently, and then suddenly we don't see them much anymore?
I got to ask my team this question, because I have the same issue. My mother passed 5 or 6 years ago now, and I rarely hear from her. And my spirit just says I don't need to hear from her. She is developing on her own across the veil. They actually want me to not be so dependent on the Suzanne story with Susie and her mom and all the issues there. I've been dealing with issues with my guides rather than holding on to the story. So just like my stepdaughter who passed, who was my main person I wanted to connect with when I first started meditating, she held back because I had so many more things to learn before I connected with her. And I've really been able to identify issues with my mother that needed clearing out without feeling the presence of my mother. It's helped me to realize, again, we are playing roles. Ultimately, you are not the child of your parents only. You're a soul who chose those parents, but you can learn so much more from the soul's higher perspective than if you just keep going back to the same drama and being in those same frequencies that may have led to the challenges. So there are many, many reasons why one person might show up or might not show up, but it all comes down to what is the best for the growth of you while you're here. We want to be able to manifest more love, to shine our light more brightly when we leave here than when we came in here. That's why we chose the parents we did. So for each person, will connecting with them now help you with that? Or might there be another reason why you're not connecting with them?
That's very insightful for me. That really kind of blows that open a lot. It is for our growth, whatever is going on. Boy, that's a great thing to remember. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, Suzanne, this one has been snagging me. It's not directly connected with, well, it kind of is, with connecting with spirit and meditation. The part that's connected is, you know, kind of the preparing yourself and being in a right frame of mind. So this was a question on Monthly Connection recently. And so we'll frame it in the, you know, getting in the right frame of mind. Okay, for people who are dealing with a lot of trauma from when they were little, and this particular psychotherapist asks to get in the space to be able to do the connection with spirit when we have people who have dealt with a lot of trauma as they were growing up. How do we, I'm confused about the whole spiritual belief about watching our thoughts and thinking positively and shifting ourselves versus allowing all the emotions that go with grief, any grief from trauma or losing someone, including despair, hopelessness, anger, to be released. So what is that balance between getting all of that fear, emotion-based thoughts and feelings released versus saying, well, just think positively and get in a good space?
I'm reminded of a client of mine named Mary Langford. She actually said I could share this because she found such healing from the work we did with spirit, and she did afterwards. A lot of the trauma that she experienced in her childhood came out in her reading, and it was some of the worst abuse I've ever heard of. And the guides came through and said, your loved ones are here, they are apologizing, and they know that you need to get out the feelings you have towards them before you can heal yourself. And they advised her to go into a safe place, like a room in her house where nobody would hear her, and pick a lamp to represent one loved one and another lamp to represent the other loved one, and to just let it all out at them, to release all of her anger and her shame and the guilt, everything, but the emotions that she had been harboring inside. And they would be there to hear it and to listen to it. But Mary was very wise. She did that, but she got her actual therapist on Zoom and set the computer up there to witness with her. So we don't have to do anything alone. And that was brilliant. And she just railed. She said she dropped curse words, just let them have it. With the therapist there to let her know she wasn't alone. And she could sense her loved ones in the room. And there came a moment in this releasing process that she did where suddenly she was filled with so much love and understood they were souls who were blinded to, in their human role, the fact that they were souls, or they never could have abused her the way they did. And suddenly, she, having gotten it all out, she felt such love for those souls like she never had felt before. It was incredibly healing, and her therapist didn't need to say a word. What was amazing was Mary told me that over the next few months, she shed 100 pounds of weight.
Oh my goodness.
Just
wow.
Carrying that emotional padding around, right? Energetic. That's just one method. But what I'm being told by spirit is that we all have each other to help each other. And we don't have to go through any of this alone. There are methods we can do in meditation on our own to ask our guides in spirit. They're our greatest helpers. What is blocking me? What is causing me to be triggered by these situations? And you may or may not get a result, an answer. But then we're also given energy healers. We're given traditional therapists. There's no shame in seeking that, but a holistic approach where we try meditation. And if that's not resulting in the change we need, then we seek different avenues, but our guides will guide us to the perfect person to help us if we maintain that relationship and ask that of them. Very, very important to feel our feelings, but to also feel safe in doing so. I'll just
Mhm.
ramble on a bit more here, that I was talking to
Sure.
my friend Irene about the sip of the divine, the 3-minute practice, and how helpful it is. And she told me something that really surprised me because I hadn't personally experienced it, that when she was grieving the passing of her daughter, she was afraid to sit in the silence for even 3 minutes because she feared that tremendous wave of grief that kept swamping her after her
Mhm.
daughter's passing, until finally she got to the point where she was just exhausted from all that grief. And she said, I give up, I surrender, I'll sit for 3 minutes, even if I get swamped with grief. So she sat to do the sip of the divine, and here came the wave of grief, but she had surrendered. And just like a wave, it washed right over her. And she was stunned to see that she didn't die. She didn't experience anything worse than she had already experienced, and it was gone. And what followed in its wake was peace, like she hadn't felt in ages. And she went back and did the sip of the divine regularly, and those waves diminished because she realized that's the nature of emotions. They flow. And then once you felt that and you realize that the peace is always here, you no longer fear it and it doesn't come up. So this is a process. These are just tools that we can all use to heal ourselves. But the meditation, creating that space for what can heal us, is really critical.
Wow. Wow. And it's so comforting to know that our guides are there,
So
with us.
yeah, you are just never alone, but so many of us forget to ask. Why don't we do
Yeah.
one, Stephanie?
Okay, one more. I think this can be really relatable to a lot of people. So this was a question, and I'll genericize it. So if we grow up in a specific religious tradition, say Jewish or Christianity or Muslim, so is it okay to ask the sort of spiritual leader of that particular ideology? In my case, I'll just say it's Jesus because I grew up Christian. Is it okay if I ask Jesus or Mohammed or so-and-so to be one of my guides, especially if I consider him or her a friend that has been part of the religious tradition I grew up with?
It is so okay. And all of the masters and all of the angels want us to know that you can tell when something is helpful and healing, and that's all that matters. So anything that is helpful and healing is okay. Even if that spiritual leader was not part of the religion you grew up with, they're saying just go higher no matter what. Just reach to those who have the higher perspective. I was raised with no religion, and yet Jesus is my go-to teacher now. I have a picture of him on the wall over here that inspires me because he came to me in ways that I never could have expected, and has taught me about oneness and love. And that was the last thing I ever expected, is to be relating directly with him and hearing him. But the evidence he gave me was just irrefutable. So don't be afraid to ask any higher teacher to come to you. You don't have to be specific, Steph. We can all just say, whoever has the right energy to match what I need now, please be my teacher. I'm open. And then just remain open and receptive to what happens. And they want to work with us. That's why they're here, to help us find our way home to love and peace.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. And it reminds me too, Suzanne, when there was another character in the Greek mythology that came to you, Odin, I think. So you learned from a mythological Greek master,
Yeah, he was the Norse god, the head of the Norse gods, but the teaching was phenomenal. The evidence was off the charts. So several videos are out there. She spoke to a Norse god. Archangel Michael is real. There are some about Jesus. The miracle of Christ consciousness is that one. That's why I absolutely know that Jesus speaks to me and anybody who asks. I love when I have people come through in my readings, someone's loved one on the other side, and I say, oh, for example, your mom had her faith was very important to me. She showed me a cross, she showed me a Bible, And she says, I've met the Lord, I've met Jesus. And they say, oh my gosh, really? She would be so happy. That's true. Her faith was very strong. And invariably, Stephanie, those spirits across the veil say, and it's so much bigger than what I thought before. So this, I know that Jesus is real and here to help us, but helping everybody, just like the other spiritual masters, because ultimately, when we get beyond these stories, it's all about the love, the connection, cooperation, helping each other.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for fielding those questions and asking them so beautifully and sharing in the discussion. Hope that was helpful for all of you. Any final parting words, Stephanie?
I don't think so. Just like you were saying earlier, Suzanne, stay committed to that meditation, and things will happen for you in the time that they're supposed to. So.
That's the word, commitment, right there. At the Omega Institute, where I taught this past weekend, a woman came up to me and she said, I flew here Thursday from India just for this workshop, and I'm flying back to India from New York on Monday. And I said, that's commitment. And she said, well, that's the word you always use. And I am committed to my spiritual path. And she gave me a copy of the book to autograph. And I, bless you for your commitment. You could feel her joy. And that's what I want for everybody. So some people look at me and they say, oh, well, you were this Navy officer. You have discipline. There's no doubt I do, but there's a big difference between discipline and commitment. Once you start to feel the love that we are and what's available to us and the help that is just here for the asking, the commitment becomes easy. You just won't want to live without that daily connection. Thank you all for joining us. We love you, and we're glad that you were committed enough to watch this program. We're going to keep all kinds of videos coming your way for as long as we're able to. So go out there and enjoy your own spiritual practice.